Sophie Hart had imagined many embarrassing scenarios while preparing for her first week at one of the largest corporate financial firms in the city. She had worried about saying the wrong thing in a meeting, mispronouncing a client's name, or accidentally sending an email to the wrong department. She had not, however, imagined that her biggest personal disaster would happen in an elevator, mere inches away from the company's highest-ranking executive. It was the sort of moment that doesn't just feel humiliating, it feels like fate itself has chosen to expose your humanity in the worst possible way. And for Sophie, starting her second day as an executive assistant, fate had a flair for theatrical timing. The morning had begun in a rush. She overslept due to nerves, hurried through getting dressed, skipped breakfast after nearly spilling coffee on her white blouse, and then downed that coffee faster than her stomach could handle. Every detail that morning was slightly off tilt, nothing catastrophic, just enough to make her feel unbalanced. The city commute added to the tension. Crowded subway cars, cold air seeping through the seams of her coat, and the anxious static of thoughts swirling endlessly in her mind. She clutched her handbag tightly, rehearsing her tasks for the day, determined to make a good impression. She wanted to appear calm, competent, and capable. She was trying very hard to be someone who belonged. By the time she walked through the sleek revolving glass doors of Cole and Hartley Financial Group, her nerves were taut like violin strings. She forced her breathing steady, fixating on looking confident as she approached the elevator bank inside the marble lobby. She pressed the button, stepped inside when the doors slid open, and only then realized she was not alone. Standing beside her, tall, calm, and unmistakably recognizable from corporate newsletters and Forbes magazine features, was Ethan Cole himself. CEO. Billionaire. Public figure. A man whose presence seemed to carry gravity. Sophie immediately felt her posture stiffen. She tried to stand taller, tried to control her expression, tried to act like she belonged among powerful people, but her body had other plans. The moment arrived so fast she did not have time to brace herself. A sound, loud, sharp, unmistakable, broke the polished quiet of the elevator. In the echoing steel chamber, it seemed amplified. Sophie's heart, already jittering from caffeine and nerves, stopped completely. Her face flushed hot, rising from her chest to her cheeks, her ears, her scalp. She felt like her entire body was on fire. It was a sound no one could deny, debate, or pretend did not occur. The elevator went silent again. Too silent. Too still. She didn't breathe, she didn't blink, she didn't move. Every thought in her mind scattered into static. Then slowly, terrified, she looked up. Ethan Cole was watching her. Not wide-eyed. Not disgusted. Not shocked. Just watching with the same unreadable expression that had been photographed 1,000 times. His suit was pristine, his posture relaxed, one hand in his pocket. Everything about him radiated control, stability, composure. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to step through the floor. Her throat tightened, but instinct forced her to speak, to try to explain the unexplainable. I swear I didn't. I mean I did, but, oh God, can we just start today over? Her voice cracked, thin and trembling. She braced for rejection. For the cold dismissal. For a polite but deeply humiliating silence. She waited for him to look away, to pretend she wasn't there. He didn't. What he did instead was so unexpected that Sophie couldn't process it right away. His expression softened. His mouth lifted, just slightly, just enough. His voice came warm, smooth, unhurried, as though they were discussing something trivial. Best icebreaker I've had all week. The words wrapped around her like a lifeline thrown to someone who was already sinking. Her lungs worked again. Not well, but enough. She stared at him in disbelief. You're not horrified, she whispered, barely audible. He tilted his head and replied with the calm confidence of someone who didn't feel the need to impress anyone. Honestly? I'm relieved. I thought it was going to be me. And then he laughed, not a forced, polite chuckle. Not the controlled PR smile she recognized from business articles. A real laugh, warm, genuine, almost boyish. It transformed him. Made him human. And something inside Sophie loosened for the first time since she entered the building. Her embarrassment didn't disappear, but it shifted. The moment became absurd instead of devastating. Ridiculous instead of life-ending. And somehow, oddly, shared, she opened her mouth to respond, to maybe even laugh with him, but the elevator dinged and stopped at the 20th floor. Her panic rushed back all at once. She didn't think. She just moved. The doors opened and she bolted out. I think this is me, she announced, though it very clearly was not. The hallway outside was unfamiliar. Her security badge didn't even open the glass partition. Behind her, the elevator doors began to close. It's not, Ethan said gently, amusement in his tone, as the gap narrowed between them, then the doors shut. Sophie stood in the hallway for several long moments, her back pressed gently against the frosted glass that refused her entry. The elevator was gone, the moment was gone, but the sensation of it clung to her like static. She forced herself to breathe slowly, reminding herself that the world had not ended, that she still had a job to do, that she could not hide in a random hallway on the wrong floor forever. Eventually, she made her way back to the elevators, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floors. Her hands were trembling, but by the time she reached her actual department, she had smoothed her hair, straightened her blouse, and practiced her breathing enough to at least appear composed. The day moved forward with the heavy momentum of corporate routine. Meetings, emails, scheduling, document formatting, phone calls, and the endless cycle of being needed at every second yet belonging nowhere fully. Sophie tried to keep her focus, but now and then her mind replayed the elevator moment in a loop. The sound. Her attempt to flee. Ethan Cole's laugh. His warmth. She felt humiliation creep up her neck again, but then she thought of his words, how he had eased her shame without mocking her, without minimizing it. Best icebreaker I've had all week. The sentence replayed again and again, and slowly, her memory of the moment softened around the edges. Later in the afternoon, while reviewing emails at her desk, Sophie heard her supervisor call her name. There was a tone there, not annoyed, not urgent, something else. Sophie, Mr. Cole would like to see you in Conference Suite C. The words hit her like cold water. She blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. Her supervisor repeated it. She nodded numbly, stood too quickly, steadied herself, and smoothed her hair again. Her pulse beat hard beneath her collarbone. She wasn't sure if she was walking to her professional growth or her professional funeral. Conference Suite C was located on the executive floor, which felt like an entirely different world from where Sophie worked. The lighting was softer, the carpets thicker, the hallways quieter. Her heels didn't click here, they hovered. The door was slightly open when she arrived. She knocked gently and stepped inside. Ethan Cole was standing near the window, overlooking the city skyline. The late afternoon light cast soft gold across his face and his suit jacket was draped over the back of a chair, sleeves rolled up slightly. He looked less like a magazine cover and more like a real person. He turned when he heard her. His expression was neither formal nor distant, it was attentive. "Sophie," he said, as though saying her name was familiar to him. As though he had thought about it since the elevator. "Thank you for coming." She nodded, her voice thin but steady. "Of course." He gestured to a chair, and she sat. She wasn't sure what to do with her hands, so she folded them neatly in her lap. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, he leaned slightly forward, not imposing, just present. "About this morning," he began, and Sophie felt her face heat again. He held up one hand gently, signaling that she didn't need to panic. "I want you to know it didn't change my impression of you. Not in any negative sense. Everyone has moments, and that one just happened to be memorable." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her shoulders relaxed an inch. She nodded. Thank you. I really thought I had ruined everything. Her voice carried sincerity more than professionalism. There was no point pretending she had not felt crushed. Ethan shook his head lightly. If a career could be ruined by being human, none of us would be here. His words were steady, unpretentious. He continued, I also wanted to talk to you because I read your application and your background before you started. Your resume doesn't show everything, but it shows enough. You've worked hard to be here. I respect that. Don't shrink yourself because of something so small. Sophie blinked. Something in her chest loosened further. She had spent years trying to prove she deserved the chance to sit in rooms like this, despite the lack of connections, the financial struggles, the long hours of part-time work and studying at night. To hear her effort acknowledged, simply, calmly, directly, was almost overwhelming. She nodded again, and this time, she did not look away. Thank you, she repeated, but this time it meant something deeper. The mood between them shifted. The tension dissipated. She could breathe again. Ethan leaned back slightly, and his tone softened in its own subtle way. Now, he said, tell me how your first week is going. And that simple question, not about the embarrassment, not about apologies, not about awkwardness, but about her, opened something in her. She found herself talking more openly than she expected. She spoke about the adjustment, the fast pace, the pressure she put on herself. She confessed that she wanted to be the kind of person who added value, who wasn't just occupying space. Ethan listened. Not half listened. Not politely waited to speak. Listened, as though what she said mattered. When she finished, he nodded slowly. Good. Here's the thing, Sophie. You don't have to prove anything to belong here. Let the work speak for you. His words held weight not because of his authority, but because of their sincerity. Their meeting ended not with tension, but with understanding. Sophie walked out of Conference Suite C with a steadier heart, a clearer breath, and a surprising sense of calm. As she stepped back onto her floor, she touched the small lavender-embroidered handkerchief in her bag, a gift from her grandmother, who always told her that dignity wasn't about never falling. It was about how gracefully one got up. For the first time since she had stepped into the building on day one, Sophie felt like she could stand tall. Not perfectly. Not flawlessly. Just honestly, and that was enough.